It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show!
Hey there, everybody. It's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey, gang.
And Liz Newman.
Hello, everybody.
Due to technical difficulties, Les could not join us this week. Hopefully he will be with us next week. How are you guys doing?
Oh, doing all right.
Yeah.
As well as can be expected.
Concerning the current situation, yeah, I totally understand. I hope everybody is okay out there, staying safe, abiding by the rules and orders that are being sent down from cities, counties, states, all that. Just staying safe. So, what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
Gee, how do I top that?
You're doing what I just said. You're staying home.
I am. I'm lucky enough to have a job where I can work from home without too much argument from them, anyway.
Yeah.
Which is good because somebody's got to stay home with my kid, whose school is closed for at least another week. Although I'm willing to bet that gets extended again.
Oh, yeah.
I can't see any reason why it wouldn't, but they haven't really said anything yet. He's still settling into the whole e-learning concept. Still having to persuade him that being on the computer all morning doesn't have to involve playing games. It can actually involve doing schoolwork.
Right.
I am not cut out for homeschooling, that's for damn sure, but anyway, otherwise, just trying to keep sane in a crazy world. I find myself starting to listen to more music to, I guess, calm the savage beast in my head. I don't know.
Right.
I've been doing that too.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's helping for me, but
I think with music, it can take you back to a certain time. And some of the music I've been listening to, it's not really happy music. I don't think I ever listen to happy music, but it takes me back to a happier time.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I can't listen to this song without listening to this song without, so it's kind of like a trip down memory lane.
Well, that's the order they were in on the mixtape, right?
Right.
Let me see if I understand. So you're listening to not happy music, which makes you remember a happier time. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. In her defense, usually if I'm in like really desperate straits and I need to change my mood to something happier, I will go straight to Black Sabbath. That's my default.
Yeah.
And it will actually work 9 times out of 10. It will put me in a better mood. Black Sabbath.
See, and I have a set default. I start off with like Chemical Romance, but then once I hear a certain song from them, it's like, ooh, I can't listen to that song without listening to 3 Days Grace, which leads me to Seether, which leads me to. So it's kind of like a set. It's never just one group all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I used to DJ, so maybe
that's
that was
probably
part
why.
of it.
Yeah, you never heard 2 songs by the same artist in a row.
Right.
Yeah.
That was always an album
But I've been listening to a lot of Vast. Have you guys heard of them?
Oh, hell no.
A guy named John Crosby. He does it. It's visual, audio, sensory. I forget what the T's for, but it's kind of hypnotic, kind of trippy, kind of
trance
it's weird.
type.
Kind of, yeah.
Maybe what trance became, or
yeah,
trance came out of that. I mean,
it's kind of a mix between like goth and emo mixed with like the old dance stuff. Not necessarily techno, but more of a vibey kind of beat kind of thing. So,
Interesting.
but yeah, if you want to check them out, it's called Bast. I usually put it on to go to sleep. It's that kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, since we're kind of talking about this kind of stuff, I've mentioned it before. It's been a while. I do ASMR, and I still do it. I'm doing a lot more now than I have been. Matter of fact, I had recently bought, I forgot what it's called. It's a little device that I have right there next to my nightstand, and I got it going there all night long, and it's got 3 programmed sounds, but I got it on the waves. So I've got the kind of sound of the waves right there next to me. I use that to kind of calm me down, especially in the evenings when I need to shut my mind down, which did not work a couple of nights ago.
It doesn't always.
Yeah, there's going to be times where it kind of gets me sleepy and that kind of stuff. I know it doesn't work for everybody. It's not so much the talking, because there's a lot of people that kind of do the talking, especially people who are, as listeners know, I do a lot of Twitch. I do watch as ASMR artists on Twitch. And there's some of them who call themselves that, where all they're doing is just sitting there talking. I'm like, that's just chatting. That's I mean, and we're not even talking about whispering. We're talking full regular voice. They're just doing some of the stuff that they see other artists do and go, well, that's ASMR. I'm like, well, that's a load of shit. And I've actually complained on it. I've actually reported some people, because there's some that kind of do almost like a podcast. You know, they're listed as ASMR. It's like 6 different people showing up on this one screen, and they're doing kind of like a talk show. And I'm like, this is not ASMR. Where the hell did you do? They're doing it because they can get away with it, and that's the stuff that kind of pisses me off. I do that to kind of get me to kind of not think about a lot of stuff that's been going on, and that's something I've been using for the last 2 years at least, and it still works.
Cool.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I just use SpongeBob and leave the TV on.
I think that's a different kind of disconnecting your brain, though.
Yeah, you know.
Matter of fact, it was funny because I mentioned this before. I used to play the Star Trek Timelines game on the computer until I got kind of tired of it, because it was really nothing more than every weekend is a contest. You're supposed to do this, which bugged the hell out of me, because I'm busting my butt trying to do the contest to try to win some of the stuff they're offering as prizes. And then the rest of the week, I don't really mess with it, because there's not much I can do. But one of the things I kind of noticed was they would use the sound of the engines from Enterprise D. I mean, that's kind of constantly going. Cool. You know, that kind of hum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is a cool touch and all that. But I noticed, hey, I could actually that's kind of a nice ASMR. And I come to find out there is a guy on YouTube, and I'll get Mikey to link so we can post in our show notes, that has that kind of stuff. You can play a 3-hour video of that sound, or 12 hours of that sound. And it's not just Enterprise D. There's like the original Enterprise. There's like the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. There's the Viper in Battlestar Galactica. It's all these different sounds. It's really cool. And he's got them in this chunk of 3, there may be 6 and 9 hours. There's definitely 12 hours. And it's basically done for people to use to try to go to sleep or just kind of calm down. Because there's a ton of ASMR artists on YouTube. But this dude is using all the sounds from sci-fi TV shows and movies.
Oh, that's
and it's like this. That is very cool.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I would love to have the sound, the hum of the engines from Enterprise D, from Next Generation, kind of going for a while. Because I could see, because there's been times where I was so tired that I'm trying to play that game, and next thing I know, it's 10 minutes later. I'm like, what the hell happened? I fell asleep because I'm hearing the sound.
Right.
Because it's a nice sound.
It's kind of soothing.
See,
It's a very soothing sound.
be the thing that would keep me up at night, and I would be looking all over the house to figure out what's humming. I'm weird with little sounds like that.
Even if you set it up to yourself. Yeah. No, I can see it. I can see it.
You wake up in the middle of the night,
right.
and you're like, what the heck? What's going on?
Who's making that noise? Oh, wait, yeah, I am. But
yeah.
you're not quite.
Refrigerator running?
But you're not quite awake enough to make that connection. No, I get it. I'm with you.
Right. Yeah.
So, for this week, we had a special guest, Steve Bryant, who's the creator of Athena Voltaire and Ghoul Scouts. You might have read some of the more recent stories from Action Lab Entertainment. He also has a webcomic called Maximus Rex. He was kind enough to join us to discuss his new Kickstarter, which is ongoing, for the second issue of The Catch, which is a really cool concept, and we were fortunate enough to read the first issue and enjoy. So without further ado, here's our interview with Steve Bryant. We are here with Steve Bryant, creator and writer of Athena Voltaire from Action Lab, also Ghoul Scouts, if I'm not mistaken, was from Action Lab. And you have a webcomic that it's once a week called Maximus. Is that correct, Steve?
Yeah, Maximus Rex. It's
okay.
Yeah.
And he's joining us to talk about his new Kickstarter for issue 2 of The Catch, which is a second issue of a 3-issue miniseries. So thank you for joining the fellowship.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about The Catch.
It's kind of Gotham Central meets like Elmore Leonard. The crime novelist wrote Justified and Jackie Brown. Well, he wrote Rum Punch, which the movie Jackie Brown was based on, and Out of Sight. Let me restart the elevator pitch, because I've recently learned you're not supposed to say it's a blank between blank and blank. So anyway, it's you can leave that in. My awkwardness is part of my charm, I'm told. But no, it follows Lucy Chase, who is a skip tracer who tracks down costume bad guys who skip bail. So, like all your mega heavy hitters in this universe, go to like a government maximum security facility, but she tracks down kind of the in the Spider-Man equivalent, she tracks down the Hypno Hustler. Bad guys of that ilk, the really lame ones.
Yeah.
No offense to any hardcore Hypno Hustler fans out there. But so it's got kind of a little bit of a crime feel, a little bit of a heist caper feel, and it's a little bit of kind of a moderate romance because she teams up with a U.S. Marshal who's her on-again, off-again love interest, and helps her out on the bail jumping thing. So that's it in a really big nutshell.
Well, I love the premise, and
oh, thank you.
I read the first issue last night. Thanks to you. and I enjoyed the hell out of it. So I'm ready for the second issue. I thought it was great. I love the premise, but when I started reading the book and got to get to know more of the characters and the situations and all that, I was like, oh man, I'm digging this.
Well, I thank you. And yeah, I grew up on 1970s Marvel superhero comics, and kind of took a detour, learned fell in love with independent comics in the 80s with stuff like Nexus and Airboy and the Rocketeer, and then dove back to a lot of the EC stuff through Al Williamson. But I've really loved just the way superhero universes connect, but I'm also incredibly slow at drawing superhero action. I'm not the most dynamic guy. I chalk some of that up to the Al Williamson kind of grounded school. So I was really fortunate to be joined on this by an artist named Ishmael Canales, who I met when Action Lab. He drew the first story arc of Athena Voltaire that was at Action Lab. I don't mean to backtrack and be all over the place, but I'm currently in grad school. So when I went back to school, I signed a deal with Action Lab for them to license Athena Voltaire. And so I'm still writing it and doing the covers, but we're doing story arcs with other artists drawing it. And then, I'm finishing up school here in a couple months, so I'm going to come back to drawing the book. But Ishmael drew the first arc, and he was amazing, and we hit it off. We have a lot of the same we love a lot of the same kind of comics. So I asked him if he would like to do this book, and he was game for it. So I feel like he is the perfect guy to draw this, because he can draw all of the quiet character bits, but he can also do big superhero action, which again is kind of the weak part of my game. So he is the best collaborator to have. It's pretty great.
Yeah, it's nice when you can find someone like that who, one, likes working with you, and two, can do kind of everything you want them to do anyway.
Yeah, he's been terrific. And then issue 1 was colored by Roger Soroka. Roger was unavailable to join us for issue 2, but he recommended Mireia Gerbau. I apologize for mispronouncing her name if she listens to this. But and she's doing just a terrific job on it. And then as with pretty much all of my other creator-owned stuff, Chris Murrin, who has been editing my work for a decade now, is handling the editing on it. So Chris always makes sure that the plots are tight, and keeps on me about the little details. He's another terrific collaborator. I'm really fortunate to have a lot of really cool, great, talented people to team up with. So that's the creative team.
Sure makes it easier, that's for sure.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Kind of like having a group of 4 people to do a podcast instead of one person. You can lean on one another's strengths, I imagine.
Yeah.
Oh wait, we're supposed to have strengths? What?
We're nerds. What?
I lean on others to cover my weaknesses. I call that my strength.
That is exactly what we do here.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. Okay, so this Kickstarter is for issue 2. What's going on in issue 2 that people need to go out and buy this for?
So yeah, with issue 2, well, I should backtrack just a little bit. We're adopting the model of some of the people that serialize their comics on Kickstarter, because I don't have the funding to pay Ishmael and Mireia, so we're letting the backers be a part of building this and seeing it, a year or 2 before it goes to Diamond eventually. But issue 1, we met Lucy, we met Jack, we met the supernatural and superpowered task force that Jack works for as part of the U.S. Marshals. And Lucy, I don't want to spoil too much from issue 1, but Lucy comes across a little bit of information on a flash drive that was put together by a really paranoid hero who has stuff that could take down pretty much any hero or villain. And when word gets out that that's available, the Marshals and pretty much every supervillain are all on a collision course to try to find it. And Lucy knows where it is, and Lucy is trying to make sense of this bigger thing, because again, she usually handles the more street level type of bad guys, and there are some big bads all converging on this flash drive. So yeah, and again, I think I mentioned Elmore Leonard earlier. I always loved how in his work you would get everybody racing for the same MacGuffin. Everybody wants the same thing, and you don't know how it all is going to line up, but eventually everybody ends up in the same space trying to get this thing. So that's kind of the story structure we're playing with in this book, with a backdrop of a superpowered world. But Lucy and Jack have no powers. They're just normal people.
As normal as any two normal people who actively chase superpowered individuals could possibly be. But yeah.
Right.
Well, another kind of contributing influence on this book. I don't know if any of you guys read, probably 10, 12 years ago, there was a prose novel called Soon I Will Be Invincible by Austin Grossman. He's the twin brother of Lev Grossman, who writes The Magicians, which is currently a Sci-Fi Channel series. But his brother Austin wrote this book from the perspective of a supervillain. And it just kind of the matter-of-factly way that it lays out how the world works, and just how everybody accepts, the kind of thing that you would see the Justice League or the Avengers dealing with. Kind of a little bit of what Kurt Busiek and Alex Ross did with Marvels, with Phil, photographing everything. So yeah, it's kind of fun to put those kinds of perspectives of people that live in this kind of world in the context of a comic.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's a mouthful. Trust me, I just said it. So.
That too.
Well, you had mentioned Gotham Central before, and I love that series, and I did get that kind of vibe, and that was one of the things I enjoyed about it, was it didn't necessarily deal with the superpowers, just like Batman. I don't think Batman was even in the series at all, maybe an issue or so, but it's his world. It's what they're having to do to live in it and survive, and still try to take down the purse snatchers or the jewel thieves or something like that. Doing real world stuff, but it's kind of a surreal world because you're dealing with this something that's way above your head. So yeah, I kind of got that a little bit too. And I like Lucy. Lucy's pretty awesome.
I like both of them as characters, and I'm trying to learn to write relationship stuff. So thank you. I'm glad you like her. Yeah, I'm having fun with that sort of thing. And well, it's no coincidence. It's a subtle homage or tip of the hat or whatever with the first bad guy we meet in The Catch is a cold-based bad guy. And if you look at the first issue of Gotham Central, there's a crime where a guy has been frozen from Mr. Freeze. So I wanted to kind of acknowledge some of where our roots were with this book. So, I mean, we take a different approach to it, but Gotham Central is heavily in the DNA of this book. Hopefully not in a derivative bad way, but in a God, I wish there were more books like this kind of way.
Oh, I will not lie. The moment that caught me in reading the first issue of The Catch, was seeing the steampunk car made of ice. I was like, okay, one, that's awesome.
That is
And
awesome.
two, it's brilliant. Ishmael did a brilliant job drawing that thing. It
Oh,
was
yes.
beautiful.
Yeah, he did a fantastic job. And again, I want to point out that this is all done slightly tongue in cheek, but also lovingly. There's something really quaint and fun and powerful to me about 1960s and 1970s bad guys played straight. You know, a group that calls themselves the Secret Society of Supervillains. I like that. The Injustice Gang. I like these things because sometimes we want to go back as adults and say, well, that sounds corny. No one would ever call themselves, you know, an evil mutant or whatever. Masters of Evil, you know, all of these things. And sometimes we try to back off the original concept. The original concepts are so pure and fun, and not everything has to be explained to death. So I say that as a preface to the fact that the steampunk ice wagon is driven by a guy named Phileas Frost, who has cold powers, but he's really just a time traveler whose equipment is malfunctioning and it's making things cold. And if you look at it too closely, the logic behind that seems a little too coincidental that that's his real last name. But again, that's a big old love letter to these descriptive books that you would get in the 60s and 70s that just were chock full of wonderfully imaginative ideas that I don't know. There's just a purity to it. I'm not doing the idea of those books justice the way I'm trying to explain it, but hopefully you kind of know what I mean. Where you don't need to spell everything out and to rationally explain why everything works that way. It's just these are powerful and fun characters. So I wanted to pull some of that into the dynamic of the book. Does that make sense?
Oh, I grew up in the 70s. So, I mean, I was reading those books that you're talking about during the 70s. So I totally get that. There is kind of a, okay, well, this is happening. We're not really going to explain why. And you're reading it and you go, you know what? I don't care. You're already involved with the story and the characters and all that. And there's a, like you talk about, fun and adventure that someone reading it today would go, well, that's kind of hokey because of this, that, and the other, and go, you're reading too much into it. It's just a story to entertain.
Well,
right?
and the flip side of that is that sometimes that funky name thing, for example, sometimes that happens. I mean, you'll run into people who have worked in, like, just randomly pulling a word off the top of my head, have worked in the beer industry for all their lives, and their name is Brewer. It happens in the real world. Maybe it gets a little more accent in the superhero comics, but who cares? It still happens. It's normal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it makes sense in its own way, and it also kind of adds to the wordplay aspect of the whole thing. Some of us like that kind of wordplay,
Yeah.
Okay, I have kind of one other question I wanted to ask about the catch.
Hit me.
You're working on issue 2 now. The Kickstarter is live. We're going to link the crap out of it in the show notes.
Thank you.
Do you have a time frame for when issue 3 is going to come rolling out? I know it's early, but
we had a 1-year lag between issues 1 and 2. Part of that was Ishmael had some other work he was doing, and then part of it was in grad school, the books were delivered, and as I was fulfilling it, I ended up with the end of the semester. So everything took longer than we planned. So we kind of looked at this, and Ishmael doesn't have anything else on the docket right now. So he's finished laying out issue 2, or he's almost finished. And as soon as the Kickstarter's done, he's going to start drawing it again. drawing the remaining 19 pages. So we don't have a firm timeline for issue 3, but assuming we get funded and the world is no longer in this kind of weird in-between state where we're all kind of wondering what's going to happen, I'd love to dive into the next Kickstarter as soon as we can fulfill this. So it would be great to do it sometime in October or November. But I know I want to have issue 2 fulfilled first. And, our first issue is printed in Canada right now. I don't think that's an international shipping issue. But who knows what the freight industry is going to be like in 6 months.
Right.
Yeah.
So, that's
don't
a
worry.
slight concern for me.
I'm not trying to pin you down on this or anything. I'm just trying to. Sometimes knowing that it's going to be consistent helps people decide to back Kickstarter projects.
Oh, yeah.
And so just
Well,
trying to reassure everybody,
No more than a year, because that's what we had with issue 1. But I would love to get it down to like 6 or 7 months. And I know that's still way too, not too much, but that's longer than most of us who like to read monthly comics work with this. Eventually I'd love to get this up to being quarterly or bi-monthly, depending on how quickly we could fulfill the Kickstarters. Because I never want to get it to where people feel like I've already pledged for a book, you're asking for more money, but I haven't gotten my last book. So,
Oh, right, absolutely.
I know it's kind of a delicate balancing act, but I look at books like White Ash, who I think they're pretty much quarterly with their Kickstarters, and then do a gorgeous collection at the end of that. So, I'd love to kickstart issue 3 sometime between October on the early end and March on the late end.
Awesome.
Sorry, I know that really rambled.
No, that's
fine.
fine. That's fine. It's like you said, we're in a major state of flux right now for pretty much everything, and again, like I said, I'm not trying to pin you down on anything. I just wanted to kind of get a feel, get a feel for, yes, this is something that's going to keep going on. This is an ongoing thing.
Absolutely. And again, I guess launching a Kickstarter in the midst of all of this, I feel really conscious of making sure that people who don't know me and don't know the book or anyone else in the creative team, just making sure that everyone knows that we're not insensitive to what's been going on in the world. We'd planned this about 4 to 5 months ago with our launch date kind of set in stone, and we thought about canceling, but we decided to go through with it. But now that we're in the middle of this situation, societally, I just feel like as a responsible citizen, I need to kind of throw stuff like that out there. But I also know, entertainment's important to all of us right now while we're trying to find our footing. So it's
weird times.
Yeah, it's a thing. I'll just say it's a thing. But yeah, we're conscious of it, and we want to be respectful to people who are going through a rough time. But we also want to entertain if people are interested in the book, because that's something we love to do. We like these characters. We all love comics, and we all love sharing that love with people. So, hopefully there's a middle ground between being respectful and being entertaining. Yeah. I'm Captain Bringdown today. How are you?
Well, you
say, hey, that's normally my job.
you say that, but it's kind of current reality, and it's the way things are right now, and we don't all know we hope things get back to some semblance of normal, and whatever that means, but the deal is we kind of have to get on with it until then, fake it till you make it, sort of thing.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I would love it if everyone that listens to this in 6 months is going, what are they talking about? I don't think that's going to be the case, but it would sure be nice if everybody banded together and we lessened the spread of what's going on and everybody could look back and go, well, what was the big deal? That would be the ideal, but yeah, I suspect anybody listening to this is going to know what we're talking about in 6 months. God, see, I'm still bringing this down. Let's talk about TV or something, because for goodness sakes, everybody that's listening to this is probably wanting to not think about the real world. So I am so sorry for that.
Well, okay, let's turn the page a little bit here then. Since I don't know, was that a bad pun or something? I don't know.
No, I felt bad.
Well, one of the things that often can help with a Kickstarter campaign is the fact that you're already an established talent in the business. You've already done some stuff. So let's talk about some of the stuff you've done. Let's go ahead and just for jolly start with Athena Voltaire. I mean, if people are not familiar with you and Athena, your connection with Athena Voltaire, tell us a little something about it.
It's 1930s pulp adventure, kind of Indiana Jones, but starring a woman pilot. So you have ancient artifacts, lost cities, Nazis, monsters, explosions, all that. But yeah, it originally launched on a webcomic site called adventurestrips.com, and then it went to the parent company, webcomic company, called Modern Tales. It was a big family of interconnected strips. So yeah, we were on Modern Tales for sites for a number of years. We got an Eisner Award nomination in 2005. Awesome. Good Lord, I've been doing this for a while. And we ended up going into print at Ape Entertainment for a while, and then Dark Horse collected the Ape stuff and the web strip stuff into a remastered volume that I rescripted called the Athena Voltaire Compendium. And then we started doing the ongoing stuff at Action Lab while I went back to school, so that there would still be a book coming out for a while. And yeah, it is the book I will always come back to, because it's I love that time period. I love the romance of it. So it's, if I can be said to have a signature book, that's Athena Voltaire.
And I think there's an argument to be made that it's a pretty dang good signature book. So
it is.
Well, thank you so much.
We've actually before Diamond shut down, we do our picks of the week, and we've actually thrown out Ghoul School a couple of times too.
Ghoul Scouts.
Ghoul Scouts. I'm sorry, Ghoul School. Why did I say that? Ghoul Scouts. Do your magic there, Mike.
It's probably all that. It's probably all that vodka you've been drinking. I don't know.
Well, thank you. No, yeah, Ghoul Scouts is Kids versus Monsters. I don't think there's any easier way to say it. It's not really a cross between A and B, but it's got all kinds of stuff in its DNA. You've got some elements of Scooby-Doo or Monster Squad or Goonies or any of that. Because all those things kind of exist in the same space. But yeah, it's that's another series that I had an idea for that took forever to find the right collaborator, and Mark Stegbauer draws it. And again, I feel like I have one strength as an artist, and that's knowing what I'm not qualified to draw. So that's why Ishmael's drawing The Catch. That's why Mark is drawing Ghoul Scouts, because it needed a lighter touch, a more all-ages, cartoony kind of vibe to it. And Mark is just masterful with that. So yeah, Ghoul Scouts is me writing it and Mark drawing it. Jason Millay, who has colored a whole bunch of Athena Voltaire, is coloring Ghoul Scouts, and Chris Murrin, editor all-star, rounds out the team on that. So it's a lot of fun. The first volume was Night of the Unliving Undead, our zombie story. It's also kind of the origin story for the Scouts. And then volume 2 was I Was a Tween-Age Werewolf. And Mark is currently drawing, I think he's finishing up issue 3 of our third series, which is UFOMG. And as much as I would like to take credit for that title, Mark came up with the title because I knew I wanted to. He asked what we were going to do for series 3, and I said I want to do UFO aliens, and like without missing a beat, he said we should call it UFOMG, and I'm raising my hands right now, like I'm out. There's no way I can top that.
That's
so
pretty good. That is pretty
yeah.
good.
It is.
So he gets all the credit for that one. But he's working on volume 3. So we're hoping to have that out summer, fall of this year. I don't know if we're going to do it as it's written as individual issues, but we might just do it as an OGN because I think that's better for a kids market, for a kids all ages type of book.
Yeah, it's harder to get the kids to wait a month for the next installment. For sure. I think
absolutely.
I think us old folks are more accustomed to it and more kind of able to process it. I think and I'm again old folk, but I think the younger crowd kind of wants it all at once.
Yeah.
That whole instant gratification thing. Yeah.
The binge watching generation.
Mm-hmm.
They've been spoiled by the scholastic book fairs.
Oh, that too.
Oh.
Yeah.
That used to be my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
And then when I had kids, it was like, yes, I can go back to the book fair.
Without seeming like a creepy person, right?
My fiance is a grade school librarian, and we did her book fair and packed it up the day before Illinois went into shelter at home. So, yeah, I just did a scholastic book fair helping her out, and it is I just love that. You see kids get so excited about
for books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That is
that is awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah, all jokes I make about scholastic book fairs are done with tons of love.
Right.
Because they're fantastic.
They are. But I would hate to have to work at one.
Oh, it's exhausting. I'll tell you that much right now.
And it doesn't pay with a flip either. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Because all that excitement, now you got to stand still for 2 seconds. Let me get your money.
Yeah. And then you got to go and work with all those books, and you don't get to take any of them home.
Yeah.
That's no good. Lose money on those things.
I flip through them every time I'm like straightening books up. It's anything to get kids turned on to reading and comics in particular.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, and that was the thing that kind of caught my eye with Ghoul Scouts was, you put a lot of, you give your artist a lot of credit on that, but, I mean, again, this is coming from a middle-aged white guy and all, but the thing that struck me about it was kind of the way the relationships were built between the kids. There was this great balance of innocence and awkwardness that I thought just worked really well for that kind of age range.
Yeah.
I'm still in touch with my inner tween. But no, thank you though. But yeah, it's the only thing that's different about writing those kids than writing, like Athena Voltaire stuff or whatever is because I don't want to be preachy. I don't want to talk down to them. But the only real difference is I cannot figure out a way to write a vampire story for Ghoul Scouts because you got to kill the vampire, and we don't have any killing in the book. It is all ages, and so that's been the only tough nut to crack. Everything else has been just perfectly logical with looking at them kind of developing relationships and stuff like that. So thank you for liking it, because they're a heck of a lot of fun to write. And we all, Chris and Mark and I all end up throwing in little pop culture references as as I'm developing the script. They'll point out little things that might be fun little gags too. So it's a team effort.
Yeah, you're going to have a hard time with a vampire story with that.
I know, right?
Because, so much of what has become the vampire mythology at this point is psychosexual in nature.
Yeah.
You're going to have a hard time doing that and keeping it middle grade.
Well, exactly. Like,
and if you ever figure out how to do it, please don't make them twinkle. Please.
Oh, I was taking a drink as you said that. You got me. Oh, I'm going to wipe off my computer screen. Oh, so yeah. I don't know how to respond to that.
That's okay. Often we don't know how to respond to Liz, but that's all right.
Yes, that is a fact.
It's cool. It's part of the charm.
Well, my son thinks I'm crazy because they have a show called Vampirina on Disney Channel, and I refuse to let my grandkid watch it because I don't want her to think that vampires can put on sunblock and go to normal school with everybody else. It's like, no, that's not the way this shit works.
Yeah, that is not right.
And I refuse to be the person to introduce her to that.
Why would you?
She wants to know vampires. We'll teach her Bela Lugosi.
Now I'm kind of curious, because how do you do that? Why would you do that? What makes it a vampire story if they can be normal? That's the whole point of a vampire story, is that they can't be normal, right?
She is. She goes to school and has little friends and a little gargoyle for her buddy. Yeah.
In my day, the vampires ran around the sewers of Sunnydale that seemed to open up in every single building, and we liked it that way. Sorry. Well, but earlier we were talking about the tropes of certain genres, and how it's best not to pay attention, not to over scrutinize stuff. But yeah, I always thought it was really clever how they solved a lot of that on like Buffy and Angel, where it's just I covered myself with a coat, I went down into the sewers, and that's how I got around. But I think that's a more elegant solution than sunblock.
Right.
That's just me, though.
Yeah, I still have the image in my head of Spike driving the car with like some sort of black something covering all the windows except for this one little tiny hole in the windshield, and there's still smoke filling the car.
Yeah.
And he's just driving as fast as he can.
That always reminded me of. Did you ever see a Catherine Bigelow movie from 86, 87 called Near Dark?
Yes.
Yeah.
It just reminded me of what Jesse and Severin would do with every car they picked up. That's like one of my favorite vampire movies. So any chance I get to bring that up, I do. So, but yeah, I remember that gag from that movie as well.
I think in The Preacher they handled it where he's wearing a big hat. So kind of a sunblock, but yeah. But he does pretty good to stay inside when it's light out,
So I guess there's one more thing we haven't mentioned about all the stuff you do. Gosh, you're a busy guy doing all of that, all of this comic stuff and grad school. Dang.
Yeah.
Well, the writing part
you have
is.
A cape?
I don't want to say the writing is easy, but the writing part is something I can do, on my lunch breaks at my day job and stuff. But thank you. Yeah, it's fun to do all this stuff.
Yeah, so you've got Maximum Rex going on.
Yeah. Now, that's a bit of a cheat because to complete grad school, I'm doing an independent study. and my degree is in it's called creative technologies. So it's kind of an intersection between front end coding and video and audio and digital art. It's kind of STEM, but for the arts. And so for my independent study, I said I want to do a web comic, and I want to track the analytics of how the audience builds and see the intersection between that and social media. And my advisor said, cool. So, I thought I hadn't done a webcomic with that kind of immediate turnaround where you can post something on a day and talk to, anyone that read it later on that day. I hadn't done that for, 15 years with Athena. So, yeah, it was fun to do this. And, yeah, Maximus Rex is really just – it's every cheesy 1980s post-apocalyptic movie rolled into one. It's every cheesy 1980s post-apocalyptic music video thrown in there.
Which and all of them were. It was so awesome.
Pardon?
Going back, there's so many music videos from that time frame that are that post-apocalyptic mentality. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the obvious ones like Synchronicity, and like Dancing with Myself from Billy Idol or Tom Petty's You Got Lucky. But then you also get really weird crap like Crocus Screaming in the Night or Rick Springfield Bop Till You Drop. All these things have this great cheesy aesthetic that's just so much fun. Or movies like, everybody knows Escape from New York and stuff like that, but then you get like Space Hunter, Adventures in the Forbidden Zone, where it's just got this Cherry 2000. All of them have this really charming aesthetic that, at the time seemed so cutting edge and seemed, very rock and roll. And now we look back on it and just see it as kind of quaint. So, yeah, the whole premise with Maximus Rex is that the world ended in 1989. We're 50 years later as civilization's trying to rebuild itself. And, of course, it's trying to get back to the pinnacle of civilization, the 80s. So, it's got – I shouldn't say it's got charm. I'm attempting to channel some of the charm you get in not just the really cool 80s stuff like, Escape from New York, or I put the Warriors in there even though it's not post-apocalyptic and it's like 1979, but it has that kind of feel to it. Or Streets of Fire, a rock and roll fable, I think was the subtitle on that movie. Just yeah, there's God, so much of that stuff was done so earnestly at the time that there may be a cringe factor, but there's also like a big grin factor. So yeah, I'm trying to do, something that has some of that kind of charm, but at its core, even, when you get past the mullets and the hot turquoise leopard print spandex,
the neon glow stuff.
Yeah. Once you get past some of that, hopefully there's still compelling characters on a cool adventure. So, I talk a lot about the genre, but ultimately as we meet Max, who's like a former gladiator, and his co-star Tatiana Katana, hey, you got to embrace the naming conventions.
No, absolutely, it fits beautifully.
So yeah, some of this is just at its core. I still want to tell a good story, even though we're having a little bit of fun with the idiom. So yeah, that updates every Tuesday at maximusrex.com, and it's WRECKS. So okay, that's me plugging. I should stop.
No, that's fine. We'll put a link in the show notes as well.
Right.
Oh, cool.
I mean, honestly, that's why you're here. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Plug away.
Plug away.
I'm always afraid of sounding like a shill.
This is your moment to shill. It's fine.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay. Was there anything else? Yeah, you wanted to
Shill.
just chill? Yeah.
Well, I feel like I've rambled way too much. I apologize for getting the late start, and then I feel like I go off on a million tangents. So I appreciate you guys being patient with me.
Oh no, you're fine, and I'm glad we had you on, and wish you lots of luck with the Kickstarter, because I want to see Catch number 2 and Bryant.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And yeah, it's probably going to come right down to the wire, because we did on the first issue campaign. And I know that makes some backers a little bit nervous that, are they going to make it? Should I cancel my pledge? But if we do come down to the wire, bear with us. We pulled it out in the last hour last year. So I'm confident we're going to see the Catch number 2.
Yeah, I think so. And the thing that people should remember when you're backing a Kickstarter, you don't have to pull your pledge, because if it doesn't make it, nothing ventured, nothing gained at that point.
Right.
It's not like you're not going to get your money back if you don't pull out. Your money's not there yet. They haven't billed you yet. They won't bill you until the campaign is final, is over.
Right.
So
Right.
don't do that pulling out thing. It's not cool.
That is not cool. It's definitely not cool. So, Steve, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on, and stay safe and take care of yourselves.
You too.
All right, thanks. You too.
Thank you too. Okay. And we'll be right back. Welcome back. If you listened to our podcast before, this is usually the part of the podcast where we select our picks for comics that will be coming out this week. As you may be aware, as of March 25th, there will be no new comics hitting the stores for the foreseeable future due to the fact that Diamond's essentially shut down. And a lot of publishers have kind of shut down due to the current situation. So in an effort to help the local comic book stores who are offering curbside pickup, they're ordering you can do online ordering and they can ship it to you. In some cases, they may be able to deliver it to you. We suggest that you contact your store, and they'll be more than happy to help you out, because let's be honest, they're closed as well, and they could use funds. So if you can help them out, that would be greatly appreciated. So what we decided to do is turn our weekly picks into in case you missed it picks. So, books that have come out maybe real recently, some maybe not so recent, that we enjoy the heck out of and want to kind of bring to your attention. And there's a good chance your comic store may have it and would be happy to send it to you. With that said, I guess I need to pull up our order list. And Mike, you get to go first.
I get to go first. Okay.
Yay.
I can do that. So this is my title for this week is a title that I have talked about quite a bit over the years, especially. But I know I talked about it roughly a year ago, because the title is Lazarus Risen. This is from Image Comics, and it is an ongoing series. The difference is it's not a monthly series. It is a quarterly series. So they're putting out a book that's in the 68 to 72 page range every 3 months, which is a concept that people have talked about around comics for a while. Obviously, Greg Rucka's a fan. But actually, it's probably as much Michael Lark as Greg Rucka. They're the creators of Lazarus. And I'm pretty sure I remember Jimmy Palmiotti talking about doing it, or wanting to do it, or suggesting it anyway, somewhere along the line in the last couple of years. But yeah, the idea is that a monthly process is kind of difficult to maintain, and it would make more sense to do something that's bigger every quarter instead, just for the sake of making the whole printing process easier. But anyway, so like I said, Lazarus did it. They went to a quarterly book. The most recent one to come out was number 4, which actually came out last week. And the premise behind Lazarus is the world fell apart about 65 years ago. So this is actually it's near future, and so when the governments collapsed, a kind of a mafia style family system came into place, and so there are a couple of dozen families that essentially run the world, and one of the most prominent ones is the Carlyle family, and the Carlyle's Lazarus's name is Forever, and a Lazarus is essentially a super soldier style champion who they do a lot of there's since these families are set up essentially as governments. The Lazarus for each of those families is generally in charge of the military for the family, and I'm going to stop rambling about this soon, don't worry. But so the idea is that there have been at least 6 trades, and that was before the title went quarterly. But so now that it's quarterly, I was going to say it's like $8 for an issue. And like I said, they would have gotten theirs in. Your local shops would have gotten theirs in with the last shipment from Diamond for Risen number 4. And it's a beautifully written story, and it's a very detailed world at this point. It's been around long enough that there's a lot of great detail in it. And Greg Rucka is, say what you will about the guy, he's a really good writer, and the art is absolutely beautiful every time. So it is definitely worth checking out if you haven't. Whether you want to start with the Risen series, the quarterly series, you can. Stuff will still make sense. But if that looks good to you, then go back and check out some of the previous trades.
There you go. And yes, your local comic shop should have the trades and the latest issue. Yeah, cool. Yep. Alrighty, I am next, and for in case you missed it, it is a hardcover collection called DC's Wanted, the World's Most Dangerous Supervillains. And I assume this was done kind of to be a part of the Year of the Villain event that the publisher was doing. But this is a collection of a short-lived series that was done in the early 70s, which was essentially Golden Age and Silver Age reprints, anthology books featuring villains of the superheroes. It was a 9-issue series, and it's some of the villains that were included was Captain Cold, Clock King, Dr. Light, the Ghost, which we know now as Gentleman Ghost, Joker, the Penguin, the Mist, the Prankster, Signal Man, Solomon Grundy, the Trickster. Oh, the thing that's cool about this collection is they included the 10th issue that was never printed. They had to put it together, but the book was canceled. And there's a note saying that in issue 8, in the letter column, they mentioned the 10th issue was going to be a all-girls issue. And it included in a story from starred Catwoman, and in one that I forgot included Black Canary. She was originally introduced as a villain back in the 40s. So it's really kind of cool to go back and read some of these stories, because some of these, other than that reprint in the 70s, have not seen the light of day since the 40s and the 50s and early 60s. So it's a really cool collection. It even has all the covers from the books from the 70s. It's just really, really nice stuff. When I picked it, I was surprised to see that the collection had been released. I didn't know they were doing that. So when I saw it, I had to get it, and I don't regret that decision. So yeah. So if you like your bad guys, you like DC characters, here you go.
Nice.
Alrighty, Liz.
All right. Now mine may be a little different because I'm not sure if your local comic book store will have this on hand, and I don't know how many special orders they're doing. I think I kind of missed the mark on our picks.
You went a little obscure this week. That's all right. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
I went way back when we were talking. We originally talked about picking like trades and graphic novels, and I thought, well, cool. I've got tons of those. So I went out to my shed and I found a little book called Emily and the Strangers. Now, you may not be familiar with her, but back in 91, Santa Cruz was really popular with her skateboards. You had, my names just went blank, like Gator and stuff. You had some big names skating for Santa Cruz. Ross Goldman stepped out and he had this cute little girl on his skateboard. And it was cool because she wasn't a Betty. She wasn't, anybody's side piece or little side chick or anything else. She was just this really cool little goth little girl who was just kind of strange in her own way. And Santa Cruz went nuts with it. She was mainly advertising. And then a couple of different people have used her for some different things. But then Dark Horse finally in 2013, I believe it was, when this came out. Let me double check. I think it was 2013 when this finally came out. And they finally put her in a comic book, her own little story. And the story they gave her in here, I wouldn't have expected anything different from Emily. It's kind of strange. It's kind of gothy, steampunky, Cthulhu kind of thing in here. So it was wrote to be an all ages kind of thing. But like I said, if you if you were a fan of her back then, it was really cute to finally get a story of her instead of just a T-shirt or something. It's something you can read, and it is a cute little story. Since it is all ages, it's kind of a moral of no matter how badass you may be, sometimes you need friends. You can't do everything on your own. And like in this case, the best music wasn't made by herself; it was made with her friends and stuff. So cute little story. Like I said, it's called Emily and the Strangers because the band she gets is a bunch of strangers. But like I said, cute little story if you like that little genre. And I think I've always been drawn to the cute and quirky kind of spooky girl. So this was my first spooky girl.
Neat.
Mm-hmm.
I said it's always kind of weird when they can take something that was just advertising and they turned her into a whole person and, what do they call that? Pop culture kind of icon.
Yeah, interesting.
Yep. I'll have a better one next week for you guys.
That's not a bad one. Jeez.
That's not a bad one. That's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's very if nothing else.
Yeah.
And I did say, I think last week, and I want to throw it out there one more time. Les had recommended the Nell for us
Mhm.
And the more and more I get into this story, I finally broke down and got it for my tablet. So the more and more I read this story, it's like, wow, this is cool. And I can't believe they took that long to make a story like that. So if you can't find Emily, I definitely recommend to go pick up the Nell.
If you can't find Emily, she steals Les's pick from last week.
Yeah.
Well, we'll just make it Les's pick again, I guess. There you go.
Sure.
It was
Why
a good.
not? They should have them.
All right. Any special shout outs this week? Obviously, Steve Bryant for joining us this week.
Yeah,
Yep.
thanks, Steve.
It was a lot of fun.
It was.
Yeah.
I don't think I have anything else.
No, just kind of what we've been saying all show. Be safe.
Yeah.
You know.
I kind of want to piggyback on what I was talking about earlier with comic stores. I would also recommend, if you can, support the creators. A lot of them are, especially the writers, are being shut down. So they're not really writing right now.
And many of them are freelancers, so that's their income, and it's not a particularly stable form of income to begin with.
Yeah.
So whatever you can do. A lot of them have Patreon accounts. Check out Kickstarter and find the people you know on Kickstarter, that sort of thing.
And Jimmy and Amanda have paper films where they sell a lot of their work and stuff over there.
Yeah, their own websites, absolutely.
Yeah.
My best thing, if you go on Twitter, a lot of them have where they sell, their extra copies or whatever. Most of them have it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but artists are offering commissions and some of their artwork that doesn't just. So if you have the funds, I mean, because Lord knows we're all in this together and we're all struggling. But if you can, try to help out the creators as well as help out the comic stores. I got the newsletter from Colin Bunn earlier today. And he was talking about him being shut down. He says that was about 85% of his income is just now gone from the writing.
Yes.
Yep.
So he's offering, hey, I've got all my books on the website and that kind of stuff, and just like you said, Patreon and all that kind of stuff. So please try to help them out if you can.
Yep.
Yes, please.
We'll go ahead with our regular shout-outs. I want to thank Pop Goes the Culture Podcast Network for allowing us to be part of such a great group of podcasts. Definitely recommend that you check them out. We'll have a link in our show notes. We also want you to check out the fine podcast people who make up Potter Family on Twitter. I believe we mentioned it earlier. Great group of people who support each other. That's really awesome. And for you to check them out, easiest thing to do is just do a search, #Potter Family. It's going to pop up a big long list of episodes. Just scroll through them, and whatever catches your fancy, please download that episode. And hopefully you found something that's just been another show that you just enjoy entirely. So please support them as well. Thank you, guys. Manny the Martyr, I want to thank them for supplying the music to the podcast. Definitely check out their music. We'll have a link in the show notes as well. And finally, you, dear listener, thank you for downloading and listening to today's episode. We do appreciate your support as always, and we value your feedback. If you have a question, comment, complaint, suggestion, observation, what have you, please contact us. We'd love to hear from you. And there are several ways you can do that. Our email address is email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. Or you can go to the website, go to the About Us page, and there's a contact form you can fill out there. You can check us out on social media. We're on Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks. We're obviously on Twitter, @FellowshipGeeks. Follow us on both of those platforms. If you'd like to follow us on our personal Twitter accounts, you can do that. Mike can be found @MikeyGeek. Liz can be found at LN_geek, and I can be found at TomTCGeek. And wherever you download our podcasts from, we would greatly appreciate it if you take a couple moments and rate and review our show. Anything else before we say goodbye?
Just thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for listening once again, everybody. Please stay safe. Take care of each other and yourselves. Hopefully we'll have less with us next week without the technical issues. Yeah, that would be nice. I understand. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Until next time, keep on, my friends.
We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,